From the streets of Kathmandu to the boulevards of Paris, from Lagos to Santiago, there is one constant in every major global protest: the youth. This is Gen Z, a generation branded as apathetic and screen-addicted. Yet they have become the most fiercely effective protesting generation of the 21st century. The question is simple, but the answer is complex. Why? Why has the phone that gave them TikTok also given them the power to shut down cities and challenge governments? This isn't just a political story, it's a profound psychological shift. Today, GENSHIFT is performing a global audit of youth rage. We'll show you how hashtags became barricades, and why Gen Z's frustration isn't about chaos. It's about saving what previous generations left behind. Get ready to understand the revolution happening right outside your screen. Hit that subscribe button now to join us in navigating tomorrow's mind and the technologies shaping our world. One, the disillusioned generation, the chain of crises, the motivation. To understand the fire in the streets, you first have to understand the world Gen Z inherited. They didn't just wake up angry, they were born into a world already burning. Their entire lives have been framed by a relentless chain of crises, a cascade of systemic failures that feel both personal and existential. This isn't abstract political theory for them. It's the lived reality of their present and the terrifying forecast for their future. The first and most visceral threat is the climate catastrophe. For older generations, climate change was a distant problem, a line item in a budget. For Gen Z, it is the air they breathe and the anxiety they carry. It is the #1 issue they believe the government should address. In a major international survey, 41% of Gen Z ranked climate change as one of the most important issues facing the world, more than any other threat. This isn't just a concern, it's a source of profound psychological distress. Nearly 7 in 10 young social media users report feeling anxious about the future after seeing climate content online. They see a world where leaders talk, but the planet burns, and they are the ones who will be left to live in the wreckage. This existential dread is compounded by a deep and personal economic precarity. While previous generations saw a clear path to stability, Gen Z sees a landscape of crushing debt and impossible goalposts. 2/3 of this generation believe that wealth and income are distributed unequally throughout society. This isn't an academic observation, it's their daily reality. Nearly half of Gen Z are worried about affording rent, and 2/3 are anxious about paying off their debts. They are entering a workforce with stagnant wages and soaring living costs, a reality that has led many to a grim conclusion. The promise of upward mobility, the core of the modern social contract, has been broken. And who is meant to fix this? The very institutions they were taught to trust. Yet what Gen Z sees when they look at their governments and political systems is not a solution, but another layer of the crisis. Their distrust is staggering. In the United States, except for science, no major institution is trusted by a majority of Gen Z members. Trust in Congress, the presidency, and the news media is at rock bottom, with 1 in 6 or fewer expressing confidence. This isn't youthful rebellion. It's a calculated diagnosis based on evidence. Over 60% of Gen Z adults believe older generations will never fully understand their struggles. They see a political establishment that has failed to address climate change, failed to curb inequality, and is mired in corruption. Nearly half of them agree that society's entire structure must be radically changed, even through revolution. Their core realization is devastating. They don't just hate the system, they've lost faith in its ability to repair itself. Their protest is not a choice. It's a desperate, rational act of survival. 2. From hashtags to streets, the weapon of the algorithm. The motivation is clear, but it's the method that makes this generation a revolutionary force. Every generation has had its protests, its marches, its calls for change. But Gen Z is the first to wield a weapon of uprising that is instantaneous, borderless, and scales at the speed of light: the social media algorithm. Their activism is not organized in church basements or union halls. It is born in the digital ether and spills onto the streets with terrifying velocity. Consider the EndSARS movement in Nigeria. It began as a digital outcry against the brutality of a notorious police unit and within days transformed into one of the largest youth-led protest movements in the country's history. It was decentralized and leaderless, with social media serving as the engine of information and mobilization. The hashtag wasn't just a slogan, it was an organizing principle, a digital rallying cry that coordinated action across the nation and drew the eyes of the world. Or look to Myanmar, following the 2021 military coup. As the junta imposed internet blackouts and digital repression, young activists launched the What's Happening in Myanmar campaign. The hashtag became a lifeline, a tool used to disseminate censored information, attract international support, and even share tactics on how to protect oneself from state surveillance. It was a masterclass in asymmetric warfare, fighting state control with digital agility. This pattern repeats globally. The Fridays for Future movement exploded from a single Swedish teenager's solitary protest into a global phenomenon, not through a top-down organization, but because Greta Thunberg's posts went viral, inspiring autonomous local groups to organize via WhatsApp and social media. In all these cases, the structure is the same: decentralized, fluid, and digitally native. An astonishing 66% of Gen Z's activism takes place online. They don't need a charismatic figurehead with a megaphone, because the algorithm has become the megaphone. A powerful idea, a shocking video, or a resonant hashtag can be amplified to millions by the platform's own logic, which is designed to promote engaging, emotional content. This creates incredibly resilient movements. You can arrest a leader, but you cannot arrest an algorithm. This fundamental shift in the mechanics of mobilization is Gen Z's greatest strategic advantage, turning what older generations saw as a distraction, the smartphone, into the most potent tool for political change in the 21st century. 3. The algorithmic protest. What makes Gen Z's activism different? If the algorithm is the weapon, then content is the ammunition. And Gen Z's arsenal looks nothing like any protest movement that has come before. They are the first generation to wage political struggle using the native language of the internet, transforming the tools of the attention economy into instruments of rebellion. Their political vernacular isn't found in pamphlets or policy papers. It's infused with memes, rap lyrics, and live streams. This represents a fundamental rewiring of political communication. For Gen Z, platforms like TikTok aren't just entertainment. They're primary sources of news and political education. One study found that 77% of young TikTok users say the platform has helped them learn about social justice and politics. Traditional media outlets are being replaced by a fire hose of user-generated content, faster, more personal, and infinitely more relatable. A live stream from the front lines of a protest in Kenya carries more immediacy and emotional truth than a polished news segment aired hours later. At the heart of this new language is the political meme. To dismiss memes as simple jokes is to fundamentally misunderstand their power. They are a democratizing force in political discourse, allowing anyone with a smartphone to critique power, challenge official narratives, and participate in global conversation. A meme is a highly evolved communication device. It compresses complex political ideas into a simple, visual, and emotionally charged format, engineered for maximum shareability. Humor and satire become Trojan horses for ideology, slipping past rational defenses and embedding ideas directly into the cultural consciousness. This isn't happening by accident. Gen Z activists, whether consciously or intuitively, have adapted their communication to what researchers call social media logic. They understand that algorithms favor content that is visual, emotional, and reaction-provoking, so they create it. They craft content that will be rewarded by the platform, ensuring their message reaches the widest possible audience. This is a new kind of battlefield, where the goal is not just to win an argument, but to win the war for attention. They are engaged in mimetic warfare, where the most viral idea defines how millions perceive an issue. In the 21st century, a meme that goes viral can be more powerful than legislation, because it colonizes the mind space of a generation, making political change feel not just possible, but inevitable. This is activism engineered for the digital age, a seamless fusion of resistance, humor, and virality that is rewriting the rules of political power. 4. Fearless, but fragile, the cost of perpetual outrage. While their methods are undeniably powerful, this new form of digital resistance comes at a profound psychological cost. There is a tragic paradox at the heart of Gen Z's activism. They are a generation fearless enough to face down riot police, yet also the most anxious and fragile generation on record. Their activism is not only a response to this mental health crisis, it is also a significant contributor to it. A Gen Z is far more likely than any previous generation to report struggles with anxiety and depression. This is the emotional backdrop of their political awakening. But the very tools they use to fight for a better world are simultaneously worsening their pain. Constant exposure to high-intensity political content online is directly linked to more severe mental health outcomes, including chronic anxiety and trauma-related stress. Their social media feeds, once designed for connection and community, have become an unending stream of injustice, violence, and existential threat. The phenomenon of doom scrolling isn't a sign of apathy, it's the behavior of a generation that feels it cannot afford to look away. This constant exposure fuels a debilitating emotional cycle: outrage, hope, and burnout. A viral video of injustice ignites collective outrage, mobilizing people and generating a powerful wave of hope and solidarity. But systemic change moves painfully slowly, often blocked by bureaucracy and entrenched power. When that algorithmically amplified hope collides with the grinding pace of political reality, the result is deep demoralization. This cycle is one of the main engines of activist burnout, a condition of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion that drives people to withdraw, not from indifference, but from the basic instinct to protect themselves. The tragedy is that the same algorithm that gives Gen Z's movement such explosive power also acts as a psychological toxin. Social platforms are built to maximize engagement, and outrage is the most powerful engagement driver of all. The system rewards a state of constant emotional arousal, one that the human nervous system cannot sustain. The very righteous anger that fuels the movement becomes a corrosive poison, eroding the well-being of the activists themselves. They are fighting a war on two fronts, one against the injustices of the external world and another against the psychological cost of the digital battlefield they cannot escape. 5. The hope in the chaos. The future of citizenship. Despite the immense pressure and psychological toll, it would be a mistake to see this story as a tragedy. What we are witnessing is not the end of a generation, but the birth of a new form of citizenship. Through their anger and digital fluency, Gen Z is not merely protesting the failures of the present. They are building the blueprint for the governance of the future. Their activism is fundamentally transforming the relationship between citizen and state. Having grown up in a world of instant feedback and on-demand everything, they now bring those same expectations to politics. They are no longer satisfied with voting once every few years and hoping for change. They demand real-time accountability, leveraging social media to expose injustices, pressure institutions, and force governments to act within days, not decades. This marks a historic shift, from a periodic representative democracy to a constant participatory democracy, where citizens are not passive voters but active system monitors. This is just the beginning. As Gen Z grows older and transitions from the streets to the halls of power, they will carry with them both their digital native skill set and their ethical compass. This generation is poised to fundamentally redefine the socio-political landscape. They won't just use the old tools of governance more efficiently, they will rebuild the systems themselves. Imagine a world where public policy is crafted with the same user-centered design principles that shape your favorite app, where accountability is displayed on real-time, transparent dashboards, and where citizen participation becomes an ongoing digital conversation, not a box checked once every 4 years. This is the future Gen Z is building, a vision we can call Governance 2.0, a model of democracy that is faster, fairer, and fundamentally more human. Their activism today is not a rebellion against the system, it's the prototype for the next one. Conclusion. So why is Gen Z protesting? Because they have looked at the future they were handed and decided it is unacceptable. They are not burning the world down out of nihilism or chaos. They are holding up a light, illuminating the parts of society that are broken, corrupt, and unsustainable. Their digital fluency is not a symptom of distraction. It is their most powerful instrument of reconstruction. What we are witnessing is not the radicalization of an apathetic generation, but the rise of a moral one, a generation that sees repairing the world not as a choice, but as a responsibility. This is the next great shift in human history, a movement defined not by violence, but by clarity, courage, and conviction. What are your thoughts on this new wave of activism? Are you hopeful or concerned? Share your perspective in the comments below. Let's continue this essential conversation. And if you want to keep exploring the forces shaping our collective future, make sure you subscribe to GENSHIFT.